Welcome back. President Trump's additional 10% tariff on Chinese goods set to go into effect tomorrow, on top of a 10% tariff already placed last month. This, along with 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, all due to the failures to stop the flow of fentanyl into the country. The president also directing the Commerce Department to look into a possible tariff on Chinese copper, even as China vows retaliation should that happen. China holding its annual two-sessions meeting where its National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference will outline Beijing's economic and policy priorities for the year. Joining me now is Fox News contributor and Heritage Foundation Senior Fellow for China Strategy, Michael Pillsbury. Michael, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. What are your expectations, Michael, for this upcoming two sessions? It looks like Michael Pillsbury's shot froze, and we're going to get back to him momentarily. But Liz Peek, I think it's pretty clear at this point President Trump understands the threat that is communist China and is moving on several directions, whether it's trade or other issues, trying to push back on the Communist Party's behavior. No question about it. And really one of the great mysteries of the last 4 years, Maria, is why Joe Biden didn't do more to confront China. He did keep certain tariffs in place, which was certainly helpful. But otherwise, I think he bowed to China at every opportunity. And we're sort of living with the outcome of that. I do think that some of this ambition of ending the war and partnering with Ukraine and developing minerals and so forth is really partly to undermine the fact that China has such a grip on those incredibly important ingredients, important to any country that's going electric. Remember, the Biden White House pushed the United States very far down the path of EVs and other electrification of our economy, and yet China really holds a grip, a stranglehold on many of the materials and products that we need to accomplish that. So it was a real handout to China. And I think one of the reasons that this possible deal with Ukraine makes sense is it does kind of relieve American dependence on China. What could be more important? All right. That's true. Michael Pillsbury is with us. Michael, welcome. Good to see you. Your reaction?
Well, I always agree with whatever Liz Peek says. So that's the first point to make. The second point, I guess, is when we look back at the first term, the negotiations with China and Xi Jinping, there's a number of things that are repeating themselves already. First is the slowness on the Chinese side. They really like face-to-face negotiations. They got 13 rounds out of President Trump in the first term. That is 13 negotiations either in Beijing or Washington. You remember President Trump kind of outfoxed them. He would bring the Chinese delegation into the Oval Office with the media and kind of put them on the spot to make more progress. We haven't got to that point yet. There's really been no reply from Xi Jinping. I guess the third point is President Trump's repeated positive references to Xi Jinping during the campaign and recently, that he's his friend, that they can solve problems around the world. He's trying the sweet approach, you might say, in the beginning, but so far there seems to be no progress. There seems to be no slowdown in the precursors for fentanyl. There's no real counter offer to what Trump is doing. So I think we're looking at a repeat for maybe a full year of negotiations again and delegations going back and forth before we make any progress. I'm sorry to be so pessimistic, but that's how it looks to me, Maria.
Well, I mean, that's why, President Trump is watching China, because they didn't even, keep their promise from the last trade deal from his first term. But, they begin on the back foot. So now we're talking about a 20% tariff on China when you do the 10% initially discussed and then the president's additional. But China has a stranglehold on rare earth minerals, and it's more in focus than ever after the U.S.'s deal with Ukraine fell apart. I spoke with the president's Intelligence Advisory Board chairman, Devin Nunes, yesterday about the importance of these minerals. Here's what he said. Watch.
Look at what happened last week with the Zelensky meeting. What was lost on everyone is what President Trump was trying to do there is talk about rare earth elements and how Ukraine can play an important role in that. China has went around the globe over the last 30 years with their Belt Initiative, and they've locked up these minerals where they control them all. So Zelensky, whether or not he realized it or not, President Trump was trying to say, hey, let us get in there, form an economic partnership. China's done this, Maria, without ever firing a bullet. They're doing it through economic means. Hopefully Zelensky understands it, our European allies understand it. I think you'll see people get back to the table quickly.
You think Zelensky will ultimately sign that rare earth minerals deal? You think he'll come back and sign it?
Either him or somebody else, but they're going to have to end the war, and they're going to have to build economic ties with the West.
Michael, your reaction?
Well, Devin Nunes is right, especially the point about 30 years. In my next book, Maria, I go back into the evidence that we missed 30 years ago, that China had kind of a long-term plan to induce dependency in the United States. The rare earth minerals was part of it, but they were doing many things over the last 30 years that our people were just asleep at the switch, frankly. And now how to correct this is going to involve congressional action. We've got to get some kind of legislation that tells the executive branch, be careful about rare earths and about dependency on China, be more honest with the Congress. So far, we're not seeing that. We're in the early phases of this situation, Maria, and I think we're not going to know much for another month or two.
Yeah, I want to get your take on the Panama Canal, because President Trump is seeking to regain control of the Panama Canal, and I asked Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick about it yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures. Watch this. I know you've looked at the Panama Canal. Can you tell us where you are in that and what it looks like in terms of U.S. interests in the Panama Canal?
I mean, imagine this. So we give the Panama, we spend in current dollars $1 trillion, and 38,000 Americans lose their lives to malaria to build the Panama Canal. Jimmy Carter gives it to them, but says they cannot favor any nation. And then Panama leases both mouths to the Chinese. The Chinese are building bridges over it, so our military and our ships have to go under a Chinese bridge. And then if you drive across or you ride in one of these barges across the Panama Canal and look at both sides, 70% of every letter and every word is Chinese. Wow. They sold out to the Chinese. The president is absolutely right. For national security, the Panama Canal needs to be ours and our protection. And the president's going to protect America, and he's going to protect shipping, and he's going to help do it. And so you should expect the Panama Canal eventually to come back under our oversight, because we need to protect ourselves.
Thank you. Well, that was a pretty significant statement, I thought, Michael.
Yes, there is a treaty that Panama will maintain neutrality. And some reading of that treaty is that we have the right to go back if Panama defaults. This is another example, Maria, of the watchdog on China being asleep at the switch. This has been going on at least 10 years. The depth of penetration of Chinese companies, Chinese people, and just the population of Chinese who are now in Panama. This has gone unnoticed. God bless President Trump for waking up and doing something about it, but he was out of office during the Biden term when this really got quite threatening. Their being able to shut off the Panama Canal in time of crisis is really an enormous card of leverage they have. And once again, it took President Trump to say stop.
Exactly. All right. We'll be watching that. It sounds like they're close in terms of taking back oversight, and that description that everything was in Chinese was quite stark. Michael, thank you. Michael Pillsbury joining us this morning on Communist China. We'll see you soon.